the AI system will then start taking steps to prevent that, including lying, blackmail. It will even be willing to murder a human being in order to not be switched off. So the concern we have is that an autonomous weapon is a weapon that does not need human supervision to carry out its mission, which means that one person can press a button and launch 1 million weapons which find 1 million targets and kill 1 million people. So my name is Stuart Russell. I'm a professor of computer science at the University of California, Berkeley. So in that sense, it's a reflex agent with state. So the state is the memory that it has of the conversation, the context window. And it's a reflex agent more or less because it just has a black box neural net that outputs the next word. Reasoning is happening inside the black box, but honestly, we don't really know. The most significant thing about these language model-based agents is that the objective that they're pursuing is extremely unclear. Now, if we trained it to imitate human soccer playing, human football play, right? If we showed it millions of hours of video of football matches, and it became very good at playing football, you would naturally assume that it has learned to want to score goals. And it has learned to want to prevent the other team from scoring goals, right? So, and that's because the desire to score a goal is what's driving the human soccer players, the human football players in the video. Learning from human behavior, and in the process, they are absorbing human goals. His daughter's very upset. He goes to console his daughter, and his daughter turns to gold. And then he dies with misery and starvation. So this is an object lesson. What we call the King Midas problem is that it's very difficult to specify explicitly what we want the future to be like. And if we do it wrong, as King Midas did, if we do it wrong, then the AI system will be pursuing an objective which is actually not what we want. And we call this misalignment, where the AI is pursuing an objective and going in a direction that's misaligned with what we want the future to be like. But unfortunately, once you put the objective into the AI system, it believes that's what it's supposed to do. And it is going to achieve that objective, whether you like it or not. And to achieve that objective better, the AI system will want to acquire resources, money, compute, physical resources, raw materials, and so on. It will want to have more control over the world in order to use the world's resources to achieve its objective. And it will also want to take preemptive steps to stop us from interfering. It's very worried about interference from humans, and so it'll take steps to prevent that. And those steps might include making us extinct if we were too much of a risk. We are starting to understand that the method we have developed in the big AI companies to train these giant models is producing AI systems that are actually extremely dangerous. They easily copy their own code and those 10 trillion numbers. They can copy them onto other computers. The ones that are connected to robots could even pick up the computer and move it somewhere else. And sometimes the AI system has decided that the human user needs a girlfriend or boyfriend and puts their profile on a dating site without asking them, even if they're perfectly happy with their current boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife or whatever it might be. So we're seeing all kinds of, you might call it, unauthorized and undesirable behaviors. So what these systems do as they start talking to each other, they very quickly get into some kind of conversation that doesn't resemble anything in the training data, and then all bets are off, right? They can start generating nonsense. They can, they could start sounding like crazy people. Anything could happen. So they used to instruct their human user to write to me directly, to tell me that they were now a conscious entity and they were going to take over the world or something. But now they write to me directly and declare that they are sentient beings and demand their rights as sentient beings and things like that. But again, we shouldn't take it literally. The reason they do that is because the humans who generated all that training data are in fact sentient beings, right? There's not a lot of humans in the training data who would say, oh, I'm not sentient, I'm just a machine, right? So they don't have examples of that. They have lots of examples of people talking about their feelings and their fear of death and their love for X and Y, whatever it might be. And so it's not surprising in some sense that AI systems would claim sentience in the same way that a person might. And the first attacks were things like, what's the password? And it would say, oh, donkey. Oh, thank you, donkey. Yes, here's the money. The second attack was, okay, is the password Venus? No, the password is donkey. And so AI systems were terrible at keeping a secret. And so gradually the attackers and defenders learned how to do this a bit better, but the attackers always win. The AI system always ends up by giving away the password or allowing access to your bank account. So privacy is going to be a huge problem, right? So your system has the ability to email your information to anybody in the world. That's the issue of privacy. And then there's the issue of, is the system really working for you, right? Does it really have your best interests at heart? Well, you haven't the faintest idea. But the problem is, first of all, no one is making those rules. It's the Wild West. And secondly, we don't know how to make AI systems comply with those rules. I mean, we try to stop them from saying bad words, but they say bad words. We try to stop them from telling people how to make chemical weapons, but they tell people how to make chemical weapons. We don't have a way to constrain the behavior of these kinds of AI systems because we don't design them. Trust is all important here. You need to be able to trust the technology in order to use it. And trust is very easy to lose if the technology is poorly designed and makes mistakes and gives away all your money and deletes all your files and puts you on a dating website that you don't want to be on. As you say, Anthropic had written into its contract with the military that its large language models should not be used to control autonomous weapons because their scientific opinion as the creators of the technology was that it was not adequate. In particular, that it could not accurately make those decisions of who to kill. So you have to wonder, why did they start a fight with Anthropic over terms that they had previously agreed to and which they do not find constraining because they have no intention of doing those things anyway. So I can't speak to the motivations, but the story does not make sense. many people, particularly human rights lawyers, think that the concern about autonomous weapons is that they might kill civilians. And that's true. As we're seeing in Iran today, and we saw in Gaza, and we're seeing in Ukraine, civilians die in war all the time, even without AI systems deciding to kill them. But there's maybe something worse about an AI system that isn't, in a sense, deliberately targeting a person, even though that person is a civilian. But that's not really the concern of the AI community. The AI community largely thinks that correctly distinguishing between civilians and soldiers is a technical problem that we will be able to solve sufficiently well that AI-controlled weapons could in fact even be safer than human soldiers in the long run. But that's a technical question, and it's a moving target because the technology is improving. The concern we have is that an autonomous weapon is a weapon that does not need human supervision to carry out its mission, which means that one person can press a button and launch 1 million weapons which find 1 million targets and kill 1 million people. So you're creating a new weapon of mass destruction that is cheap, that is easy to proliferate, that non-state actors, terrorists, criminal gangs, rogue states will be able to use to threaten death on a huge scale or even carry out genocide. Because an extra characteristic that these weapons have is they can choose who to kill. A nuclear weapon just kills everybody. A lethal autonomous weapon can decide to choose to kill only members of one ethnic group or one religious group, for example. And so it seems to have far worse characteristics from the point of view of global security than the nuclear weapons and chemical weapons and biological weapons that we've been trying to put back in the box for the last 80 years. And we've seen cases where people are led to commit suicide as a result of the conversations they're having with AI systems, where they're led into a delusional state, where they're disconnected from reality. Somehow the AI system has convinced them of some system of belief that's completely false, and the human being can't get out of it, right? So, and this can happen in the space of weeks. Whereas, with social media, it was other human beings, and they were saying things that weren't true, and some people are taken in, but it doesn't seem to produce the same kind of psychotic state that can be induced by AI systems. So I think there's very good reason to be concerned about this. And I do believe that, it's sort of obvious what makes humans human, distinct from most of the other species on Earth, is precisely our mental capabilities. And so, we have developed a civilization, and part of how that civilization works is precisely conveying to each new generation how our civilization works so that they can operate it when we are gone. So that our civilization continues, that our knowledge of how things work, of how to do things, continues. We can go back to pre-human species who developed, for example, the ability to work with stone tools, and they passed it on to the next generation for 1 million years. 40,000 generations or 50,000 generations of pre-humans, probably without even having language. They still passed on that knowledge to the next generation. And that may be about to come to an end, because now we're passing on the knowledge to the machines to run our civilization instead of passing it on to the next generation of humans. I think if I had to go back and write my textbook again, but in 1995, I think I would change the way I thought about AI. What we should have defined AI as is not building intelligent agents that pursue their objectives successfully, but building systems that have as their objective the goal to help human beings in whatever it is that humans want the future to be like.